Imagine a world where those who follow the rules, work hard and play fair are rewarded with success, recognition, and power. Seems fair, right? But now, look around you. Who is really on top? The most ethical or the most ruthless? Those who adhere to morality or those who manipulate the rules to their advantage? The brutal truth is that society sells an illusion. From childhood, you have been conditioned to believe that good always triumphs, that honest effort leads to success, and that justice is the foundation of the world. But Nietzsche saw reality differently, in a darker and more uncomfortable way. To him, morality was simply a mechanism of control, an illusion designed to keep the weak obedient, while those with real power took whatever they desired. That is why manipulators often succeed. Ruthless leaders gain influence in politics, exploitative corporations dominate industries, and selfish individuals climb the social ladder while the innocent and naive are left behind. The game was never truly about merit. It has always been about power, and power belongs to those who recognize this reality before everyone else. Nietzsche described this as the will to power, the fundamental drive that distinguishes those who lead and command from those who submit and follow. But most people never wake up to this truth. They prefer to believe in the comfortable lie that justice always prevails. Do you believe that too? Or are you ready to see the naked and raw reality? Because after this video, you will never see the world the same way again. Since you were born, you have been taught that the world is governed by justice, that if you work hard, are a good person, and act correctly, success will be inevitable. But stop and think, does this really reflect reality? Who is at the top, the most diligent or the most strategic, the most just, or those who do not hesitate to manipulate? Society operates on the basis of a comfortable lie, the illusion of meritocracy. The concept is simple. Those who do everything right, who follow the rules and dedicate themselves honestly, will eventually be rewarded. But Nietzsche saw this belief as an illusion designed to keep the weak, docile, and the powerful in control. The truth is that history has never been written by the most just, but by the most relentless. Think about the most powerful empires throughout history. Rome didn't become one of the ancient world's greatest empires through fairness or justice. It expanded by conquering lands, destroying civilizations, enslaving populations, and crushing anyone who challenged its authority. The United States didn't rise to superpower status simply by acting ethically either. Its growth was shaped by wars, exploitation, and economic influence. Even in the corporate world, the biggest industry giants didn't reach the top through generosity alone. Companies like Amazon, Google, and Apple expanded by outcompeting rivals, influencing markets, and putting growth and expansion ahead of moral concerns. But what makes this system truly disturbing is that it was never an accident. It was built to function precisely this way. French philosopher Michel Foucault argued that power is rarely shared equally. Instead, it is gathered, centralized, and safeguarded by those who already hold it. The belief that the world is fair is simply a useful story. By convincing people that success is earned through morality and hard work alone, those in control can discourage them from questioning or challenging the people who actually hold the power. And Nietzsche took this idea even further. He argued that traditional morality, which praises qualities such as humility, self-denial, sacrifice, and submission, is not some universal moral truth. Instead, he viewed it as a system developed by the powerless to restrain those who possess strength and ambition. He called this slave morality, a worldview that celebrates obedience while portraying power as something evil. People influenced by this mindset may see ambition as selfish, personal greatness as arrogance, and resistance to established systems as morally wrong. Yet, according to Nietzsche, this way of thinking ultimately helps preserve the dominance of those who already hold the greatest power. Meanwhile, those who reject this morality and follow what Nietzsche called master morality are seen as cruel, arrogant, and dangerous. But they are the ones who shape history. They are the ones who do not ask for permission, who impose their will on reality, who create their own rules instead of obeying those imposed by others. They do not wait for justice, they take what they want. And that is why you see so many good people trapped in miserable lives while the most relentless dominate the world. Because while some believe in the rules, others break them. While some wait for recognition, others impose their presence. While some complain about injustice, others take advantage of it. The question that remains is, will you continue to believe in what you were taught, or are you ready to face the truth? If you find this content valuable, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. I truly appreciate your support. Thank you for being here. If there is one concept that lies at the heart of Nietzsche's philosophy, it is the will to power. He believed that everything in life, from biology and politics to personal desires and complex social systems, is influenced by a fundamental drive to dominate, grow, and shape the world according to one's own will. The modern belief that people are primarily motivated by happiness, peace, or harmony is, in Nietzsche's view, an appealing illusion. Beneath the surface, individuals are driven by a deeper desire to strengthen themselves, overcome obstacles, and assert their influence. The lion defending and expanding its territory, the CEO eliminating competitors to grow a company, and the politician manipulating circumstances to maintain control can all be seen as different expressions of this same underlying force, the will to power. But here is the detail that separates winners from losers. Most people have this impulse repressed. Since childhood, you have been taught to contain your desires, to be humble, to respect limits imposed by others. You have been conditioned to believe that wanting more is wrong, that seeking power is dangerous, and that ambition is synonymous with greed. Meanwhile, those who understand the truth not only accept this impulse, they cultivate it. Nietzsche believed that history's greatest conquerors, visionary artists, and legendary leaders were those who refused to suppress their own will to power. They did not wait for approval or permission from others, nor did they blindly follow the restrictions imposed by slave morality. Instead, they rejected the idea of allowing abstract ideals such as justice or goodness to hold them back when those ideals stood in the way of reaching their full potential. And this leads us to a fundamental point. Power is not something that is given. It is not a prize awarded to the most diligent or a reward for those who follow the rules. Power is something that is taken. If you look at history, you will see that the true victors were not those who waited for recognition, but those who imposed their presence. Alexander the Great did not ask for permission to conquer empires. Napoleon did not wait for a throne to be handed to him. He took it. Steve Jobs did not seek approval when he decided to reinvent the technology industry. He ignored the criticism and did what he wanted. The difference between those who command and those who obey is simple. One understands that the world belongs to those who impose their will. The other believes in the illusion that there is a fair system that will eventually reward him. And this principle can be seen everywhere. In the workplace, have you ever noticed that the hardest working employee is not always the one who gets promoted? More often, it is the person who knows how to market themselves, claim recognition, and understand the dynamics of power who climbs the corporate ladder. In the business world, companies that act aggressively, think strategically, and sometimes use manipulation are often the ones that gain control of markets, while those that insist on always playing fair can struggle to survive against more ruthless competitors. Nietzsche viewed this not as a defect within the system, but as the very nature of how it operates. He believed the world was never designed to be fair. Instead, it is a constant struggle where those who embrace their will to power are the ones capable of shaping circumstances and bending reality in their favor. And here is the truth that few have the courage to face. If you do not impose your own will on the world, someone will do it for you. If you do not define your own values, someone will impose them on you. If you do not play to win, you will merely be a pawn in someone else's game. If there is something that keeps most people trapped in a life of mediocrity, it is the morality imposed by the system. Since childhood, you have been taught to be humble, to avoid conflict, to put others before yourself, to follow the rules. You were told that being good is the path to success, that acting with ethics and kindness will ensure that you will be rewarded in the end. But Nietzsche unmasked this illusion. He realized that traditional morality is not a universal truth. It is a control mechanism created to keep the weak submissive and the strong contained. Think about it. Who created the rules that label ambition as something negative? Who determined that wanting more for yourself is selfish? Who taught people to view the desire for power as inherently evil? The answer is straightforward. Those who already sit at the top. The moral system that shapes much of society is what Nietzsche described as slave morality. It praises submission, obedience, and the willingness to put aside one's own interests. It teaches people that being passive and peaceful is virtuous, that enduring hardship without resistance demonstrates good character, and that suppressing the desire for power is evidence of personal growth. But the real question is, who actually gains from a morality built around these principles? According to Nietzsche, it is certainly not the people who are expected to live by them. The truth is brutal. This morality was created by the weak to protect themselves from the strong. People without power fear those who have it, so they invent narratives that demonize anyone who tries to ascend. Religious leaders preached for centuries that humility is a virtue, that sacrifice is noble, that accepting your suffering in silence will make you worthy. Meanwhile, they themselves live in luxury and control millions of minds. Governments preach about justice and equality, but they are the first to manipulate laws to ensure they remain in power. Nietzsche contrasted this mindset with what he called master morality, a value system associated with strength, self-determination, and those who seek to shape the world around them without fearing their own desires. For people who embrace this perspective, ambition is not something that should be hidden or restrained. It is a source of motivation. The drive to grow, overcome limitations, and gain influence is not viewed as something disgraceful, but as a natural expression of vitality. Rather than living to satisfy the expectations of others, they focus on developing themselves and increasing their ability to shape their own lives. Now look back through history and ask yourself who the influential figures were who managed to transform the world. Were they the people who simply accepted society's rules and limitations? Or were they the ones bold enough to challenge the established order? Julius Caesar refused to remain constrained by the Roman Senate, eventually dismantling its authority and becoming dictator. Napoleon rejected the idea that he was destined to remain just an ordinary military officer, rising to power and reshaping Europe's political landscape. Steve Jobs refused to accept conventional ideas about how technology should be designed and used, pushing his own vision and helping redefine an entire industry. The problem is that when you are born immersed in slave morality, you do not even realize how much it limits your life. You feel guilty for wanting more. You feel wrong for desiring power. You are afraid of being seen as arrogant for standing out, because you have always been told that being good means lowering yourself, submitting and being content with little. But Nietzsche saw this as a disease. He believed that human beings should seek their maximum potential, that they should break the chains imposed by this oppressive morality and embrace their true nature. If there is one major weakness that keeps most people from attaining power, it is their inability to master their emotions. Most people act impulsively, respond emotionally to provocation, and hold on to idealistic beliefs about how the world ought to work. Nietzsche viewed this emotional dependence as a form of weakness. In his view, those who truly understand the dynamics of power first learn to govern themselves before attempting to influence or control the world around them. Look at history. The people who gained the greatest influence were not necessarily the most righteous or the most intelligent. They were often the ones who understood strategy. While others exhaust themselves trying to prove that they are right, those who succeed at the highest level remain observant, study the situation carefully, and make their move when the timing is most favorable. The problem with most people is that they confuse strength with impulsiveness. They think being strong means reacting to any attack, responding to any provocation, fighting every battle. But that is exactly what the weak do. True strategists choose their battles wisely. They know that every action must have a purpose, and that wasting energy on pointless conflicts is a way to self-sabotage. Nietzsche understood that power often favors those who know how to understand and navigate human psychology. Most people are predictable, responding to anger with anger, fear with fear, and pressure with panic or despair. Those who understand the dynamics of power take a different approach. They turn patience into a strategic advantage, use composure as protection, and recognize silence as a powerful way to maintain control and influence. Want an example? Julius Caesar knew that his rise depended on the loyalty of the masses, so he used every military victory to reinforce his image as an unbeatable leader. He did not waste time arguing or trying to justify his actions. He let the results speak for themselves. When his enemies attacked him politically, he did not react impulsively. He waited, bought time, built alliances, and when the right moment came, he destroyed his adversaries all at once. In today's world, the same principle still applies. The most successful CEOs are not necessarily those who work the longest hours, but those who understand when to take action and when to remain patient. The most influential individuals are rarely the ones making the most noise. They are often the ones who speak selectively and spend more time observing. Yet this is where many people go wrong. They waste their energy trying to prove their worth to others. Real power is not about convincing everyone that you are strong. It is about carrying yourself with such confidence and presence that others recognize your strength without needing an explanation. Nietzsche viewed this as a form of personal mastery. Those who can regulate their own emotions are better able to influence the reactions of others. Anyone who remains composed in the face of insults, provocations, and attacks gains an advantage because they can allow their opponent's frustration to work against them. And this leads to one of the most important lessons of power. When everyone else is losing control, the person who remains calm holds the advantage. While others react impulsively, those who understand the game wait patiently, study their surroundings, and act when the moment is right. If power were merely a matter of domination and strategy, being ruthless would be enough to ensure eternal success. But history shows that those who rise to the top often fall in the most brutal way. What led them to victory often ends up being the very thing that destroys them. And Nietzsche saw this as an inevitable cycle for those who do not know how to balance strength and wisdom. Take Julius Caesar. He conquered Rome with his cunning vision and ability to manipulate allies and enemies. But the same Senate he politically dominated turned against him. Caesar was stabbed to death by those who once supported him, including Brutus, someone he considered almost a son. His ruthlessness and desire for absolute control created too many enemies, and in the end, he lost everything. Napoleon followed a similar path. He conquered much of Europe through remarkable speed, strategic thinking, and military skill. However, his ambition eventually became his greatest weakness. He failed to recognize when he had gone too far. When he launched his invasion of Russia, he underestimated the brutal winter conditions and the determination of the Russian forces, despite the warnings. His relentless pursuit of greater territory ultimately contributed to his downfall. He was eventually exiled, disgraced, and died far from the glory and power he had spent his life pursuing. And if you think this is a thing of the past, look at the corporate world. Business leaders who built empires are often destroyed by their own creations. Jeff Skilling of Enron manipulated markets and seemed untouchable until the scandal came to light and he ended up in prison. Elizabeth Holmes promised to revolutionize medicine with Theranos, but her desire for power led her to lie and forge results until everything collapsed. The lesson is clear. Ruthlessness without self-control can bring down even the most powerful. Nietzsche understood that unchecked power can create a dangerous sense of blindness. Once someone begins to believe they are beyond consequences, impossible to defeat, and completely secure in their strength, they stop recognizing the dangers around them. They start making errors they once would have avoided. They underestimate their rivals, create enemies without fully realizing it, and continue pushing forward until the consequences become impossible to escape. By the time they finally understand what is happening, it may already be too late. But is there a way to avoid this fall? Yes, and Nietzsche pointed to the answer: balance. A true master of power is not only strong, he is wise. He understands that winning is only half the game. The other half is knowing when to stop, when to consolidate his dominance instead of continuing to expand without limits, when to eliminate enemies and when to turn them into allies. Those who fall are those who confuse power with invincibility, those who rise and keep rising until the very weight of their arrogance causes them to crumble. By now, one thing should be obvious. The world is not a fairy tale where virtue automatically leads to victory. Power does not necessarily favor those who are good. It often favors those who possess strategic thinking, courage, and the ability to understand the rules of the game. And sometimes, true power belongs to those who know when to challenge those rules and create new ones. But does this mean you have to abandon every moral principle? Must you become a ruthless tyrant just to create your place in the world? That is the mistake many people make when they misunderstand power. Power can ultimately destroy those who see it only as a weapon for domination. Nietzsche was not simply advocating for mindless tyranny. Instead, he viewed power as a tool for self-transformation, a way to shape your own path, develop your potential, and remain free from becoming controlled by greed, hatred, or destructive impulses. The true victory is not simply the person who gains power, but the one who understands how to preserve and manage it. That requires a balance between strategic thinking and emotional intelligence. It means knowing when to act firmly and when to show calculated generosity, when to confront a challenge and when to step back, and when to oppose your rivals or turn their abilities and relationships into something useful. The problem is that most people live at one extreme or the other. Some spend their lives allowing themselves to be taken advantage of because they believe their goodness will eventually be rewarded. Others, after discovering the harsh realities of power, become consumed by aggression, suspicion, and destructive behavior until they become trapped by their own brutality. But there is another path. The path of those who understand how the game works without allowing it to control or consume them. The great truth is this: you can choose to believe in justice and remain a pawn on someone else's chessboard, or you can face reality, understand how power truly works, and consciously choose how you want to play the game. If this video changed the way you see reality, make sure to subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts in the comments. Remember, power is not something you simply wait to receive, it is something you must claim. See you in the next video.